It's an interesting dimension because this whole conversation today is all about fan experience. Set the table, set it again, But the first conversation we'll have now is all about the dimensions that are really at the core of the deal, which is how the buyers and sellers basically speak to each other. And we have a stellar panel. To my immediate far left, far right from your side, Tony Knopp, the CEO and co-founder of Spotlight TMS, who is also an esteemed sponsor of this wonderful conference. Gary Gross, the managing director of Marsh Marketing, who is on the affiliation identification side as well. Chris Heck, the chief revenue officer of the Philadelphia 76ers, interesting dynamic that he has of working with only the Sixers, as I've just said, under an ownership group that's pretty enlightened in 2 different cities, with 2 different sports, with 2 different buildings, with fan bases that basically can't stand each other, but he'll tell you that story. And then Len Komorowski, the president of the Cleveland Cavaliers, after a stellar career running the Philadelphia Eagles, though Joe Banner, Jeff Lurie, and others said they did, and now he is an absolute hero and icon in Cleveland. So now that I've put my foot in my mouth with all of that, what I want to do is to get from the panel a little bit of perspective how they got to where they are today. And I've asked them to prepare just a couple of anecdotes and examples about what they do or what they've seen done to enhance the fan experience in their building, with their organization, or in the industry. So let's start with Tony.
Sure. My name is Tony. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Spotlight Ticket Management. So what we do, we help companies get the most out of their sports tickets. And what that entails really is leveraging technology to make sure that it's easier for them to get more with what they're doing, whether it's with sponsorships or assets. What does that mean? It means CRM, mobile technologies, online tools, making it so that the assets that these providers have are easier for customers to use in the way that they're being trained to use by billion-dollar technology companies every day. Right now, we manage about 9 million tickets a year. That's at a face value of about $1 billion. So what we've really looked at here, we partnered with Bill to put this show on. We wanted to create a communication where we could have that open discussion of what does it look like when there's not short-term interest, and you have teams get together and talk to providers and partners like us when we're talking about where this is going to be in 5 years as opposed to where this is going to be in the next 6 months. How did I get where I am? Prior to this, I was at StubHub, employee 81 there, which is a bad word to some and a good to others. So I've definitely seen both sides, and prior to that, I was at AEG in sales.
Not a bad word to anybody. It's just the entrepreneurialism as it relates to the business and the ticketing. You'll give us some perspective on the morphing of the fan experience as well, and how scalping was a dirty word, and now it obviously is kind of the core of everybody's business. Gary Gross, the managing director of Marsh Marketing, give us your perspective.
Great, thanks. So Marsh is the world's largest commercial brokerage. We have a large investment in corporate suites, seats, you name it, fan experiences in a classic B2B match. I think I'll start the same as Tony. What we're looking for as far as, let's just call it the product on the field, smaller options that are available. For years we've been pitched with, here's the suite, it's a 20-person suite, and here's what we have. I think I look at some venues that are really innovative that are coming up with the opera theater seats and things like that give us an option and a purchase from that standpoint. And also some things that are making a big difference to us are what Rick talked about earlier on, the VIP experience. The challenge is the lack of originality, and Tony and I and his team talk about this all the time, the lack of originality in the pitch. It's kind of like, oh, well, we'll give you a back tour. Like, okay, and 20 other places are offering that. Did you know that? What else is out there for that experience that originates? So that's something we we are always looking for from an original standpoint. Just quick background, kind of fell into this side of it. John Hancock, I was lucky enough to work with some great marketers who believed in sports as a promotion. David D'Alessandro at Hancock, who cut the original Olympics deal. Joe Tripodi, when he was at Allstate with NASCAR and the Good Hands nets coming up behind, Zurich with golf, and Marsh. I think what you guys get a kick out of my first interview at Marsh was, okay, our largest competitor just bought a Premier League sponsorship with their insignia on the front. Should we do the same thing? Which always irritated me, like, let's be innovators, not followers, and figure out from there. So it's a background.
When you look at Hancock, Allstate, and Marsh, it'll be an interesting dialogue about the way corporations communicate to these guys over here, because you certainly have had a diverse experience with high-quality people. And just parenthetically, I was at the Boston Marathon doing some coverage of it, and John Hancock's coverage of a patriotic, amazing American win and a one-year anniversary was just stellar. And that's a good example of activation that goes way beyond television, but gets into patriotism as well. So Chris Heck, Chief Revenue Officer of the Sixers, not to imply that anybody hates anybody, but it is a challenging job. So as you do your thing, you got to talk about your day-to-day existence too, okay?
Sure. Yeah, Philadelphia is unique. Definitely an underrated city. So I spent 9 years just actually here in New York. And Philadelphia, it's definitely a passionate city. The one thing is about Philadelphia, and it's very similar to a Boston or Chicago, is where the sports fan in Philadelphia loves all the major teams. So, and sometimes they love to hate them too, if things aren't going their way. So our competition in our marketplace, we really have taken the angle of embracing the other teams. It's not us versus them. Not to mention we're probably the low man on the totem pole. But it's really about, can we bring in the Eagles and celebrate them? Can we bring in the Phillies and celebrate them? And we're doing so, and the fans respond positively. So that's one aspect of actually giving the fans what they want. Another aspect is, what can we do with the environment that we have that they don't have? So with football fields and baseball diamonds and soccer pitches, these are these huge stages that are almost too big for the entertainment beyond the play on the field. But we have this small court, and we really treat it as a stage. So much so that what we are going to do as we progress is keep enhancing the game experience. And that so much so is going to be, we're investing $1 million in our game presentation this year, actually more than $1 million. And that's for the fan and the balance out. And it certainly helps when you are rebuilding or starting over. So the experience will be positive no matter the outcome of the game.
What are you doing with $1 million, just really quickly?
You'll have to find out on opening night.
Oh, wow.
I'm not telling Len anything.
No, that's good.
There's no way Len's going to steal this.
Well, more important,
we have our ways.
Yeah, well, somebody's going to find out. A, and B, it better be good. That's all I got to say.
It'll be good. I will say I learned from the best. Len was my boss at the Eagles a long time ago, but Cleveland and the NBA is. And I've worked in all the leagues, but the NBA is just superior in sharing best practices. So
and they have a committee. I know everybody says they do, but they have a valid best practices committee that really does meet. And Adam's taken over from David Stern in the context of you got to share, and they're evaluated right based on how well you share also. So anyway, the guru with a capital G of the panel, Len, I've known for 9 million years, and he was there with Jeff Lurie and Joe Banner and the early Eagles. He's now morphed into the guy coming in at the LeBron-less Cleveland Cavalier early, to the Kyrie Irving, to now he is the hero of Cleveland, the president of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and what Lake Erie Monsters, the Cleveland, the Canton Charge. Got a lot of stuff going on in there. So explain how you got to where you are, and obviously the biggest challenges you have.
Well, first off, the hero of Cleveland, in fact, that's Johnny Manziel right now. while. So as far as let's get that straight. No, it's caused a lot of excitement, which is just great for the city overall. And Rick, kind words from you, and also from my friend the Hexter here. But Rick was a great partner with us with everything we did at the Eagles. So we went from, and Chris remembers this very well, we went from the worst facilities in all professional sports with Veteran Stadium, which you just measured by how big were the rats and cats. And, John Gruden tells, just one quick sidebar, John Gruden, who was our offensive coordinator, tells one of the best stories. We had this dungeon in the stadium and we had, basically the ceiling tile, which were all rotting, and you would routinely hear a real little pitter-patter, which is basically the rats running, and then you would hear the heavier pitter-patter, which were the cats chasing them above you. And he's down in the dungeon, he's working on a play, which he always did. That's all he did was draw plays. And all of a sudden there was the pitter-patter, and then one of those ceiling tiles broke, and there on his desk landed a rat, a cat, and Gruden, and they said we all ran in different directions.
That's funny.
But ultimately made our way to Lincoln Financial Field and phenomenal facilities. And Chris, we were fortunate enough to get Chris. He was the visionary, and I still don't know what happened, why we lost the first, what I would call, fully interactive, engaged, 360 NFL training camp up at Lehigh University, which was spectacular, and Chris was the architect of that. But much like Rick mentioned, I've been in this business for a long time with a lot of different teams, going back to the Penguins' early days, and worked in Pirates and even my internship, but also with the launch of the Timberwolves with Tim Lewicki of EEG, still a very good friend, and then also with the Eagles, and now here at the Cavs world with everything we have going on. And I guess one thing it could suggest is I can't keep a job, but other than that, it's been a great ride. And I would just say there's a couple things I just want to touch on before we get into discussing with the panel, and it's really triggered by what Rick had talked about. I think Rick, I always love listening to Rick because he puts it out there. He'll get into the micro, what we're talking about here today, but he really asks the bigger questions, which I don't know if you all picked up on this, but 47 leases coming due in the next 7 to 9 years. Think about that. What does that mean? It means we're in for a heap of seismic change in our industry. It's a huge opportunity, but I'll tell you what, 7 to 9 years is nothing. That's a nanosecond in terms of being able to define what the change could be out there. And we're in that world. So we have the third oldest arena in the NBA. We were built in 1994. The only two older buildings are in Milwaukee. And when I say older, a building that either isn't new or hasn't gone through a transformation like Madison Square Garden, where they put $1.2 billion into it and create a whole new arena. So I think that's something we're looking at right now, is how do we redefine the entirety of the overall experience, and we're looking at that in great detail. But the one thing I would step back even further on, because Rick did a great job of taking us back a little bit macro, is if you do have the opportunity, and when we're talking about experience, and this is certainly how we look at it. I've got a great owner in Dan Gilbert who is all about live, work, and play 24/7 cities, and if you haven't seen what he's doing in Detroit, I would ask you to Google and see Dan Gilbert Detroit and see what's happening there. But we're doing a mini version of that in Cleveland, is look outside of your arena, and you're seeing that happen a lot with various venues about full-scale development activity. And in Cleveland, we have, that's a big part of our vernacular right now, is not only the arena, but also that landscape, that area. We have 80% of the visitor traffic in downtown Cleveland come within a block radius. We're now in the gaming business with Horseshoe Casino and our partner Caesars. We're in the ticketing business with Flash Seats, and so we're looking at it more from a 360 dimensional end. But we're in a great opportunity as an industry is to take a pause and say, okay, what's best from geography, location, development, facility, fan engagement, experience, because it all adds up to the fan experience. And then one last thing that Rick touched on very well, which I think we all need to make sure we keep in mind, because it is the fundamental aspect, is, nobody likes to drink in an empty bar. And that's, while we're working on all these other great things and from a premium end, let's make sure our buildings are full. Because I'll tell tell you what, from an asset value end, it's great if we're selling premium product. It's great if we got great TV deals and all that, but that all starts to dry up if that venue doesn't have energy and excitement, because that's the waterfall. That makes our suites and our premium products much more valuable. It's what creates that energy and dynamic for interest for our broadcast. It flows everything, concessions, ticketing, you name it. It's the waterfall that triggers everything. So I would just make sure that if we keep that in mind and that tenet and that guiding light, it will help drive the rest of our business.
And that mantra of get your arena and make sure your arena's full, it can't be overemphasized. It is a huge concept that everybody deals with day to day. And the other thing I was just going to quickly say is that I think the one big challenge over those next 7 to 9 years for those 47 leases, it's hard to imagine your building is only 20 years old, but it is 20 years old, or will be 20 years old. And so, Mom. So, the bottom line of all of that is that a lot of these buildings are going to come up for major renovation discussion, and they look too new. There are people that are used to going in those buildings, and, Arthur Blank confided one of the biggest issues he had of getting the new Georgia Dome done was that it looked white, it looked new, and maybe you hire somebody the dead of night to do some graffiti. No, just kidding. But I think that's one of the biggest issues that people have to face over time. Fan experience, getting people in the building, and best practices around the leagues to make sure that these things happen on a regular basis.
Hey, Rick, I just want to mention something that Tony would hit me if I don't say. I think that these guys, the fan experience is excellent. As the buyer, if the product on the field sucks, I'm not buying.
Yeah.
So the key is, for the MSGs or Staples or things like that, the guys at Spotlight know my negotiations are much harder, but it's in heavy demand. The demand is relative to what the product is on the field. I hate to be the buyer, but that's it. What irks me sometimes from the pitch standpoint is the same kind of I go into Staples, I have to have all guns, right? But sometimes I get a pitch from somebody coming in with the same attitude that we're last in the league. And for me, it's not willingness to buy because I could have huge market demand from the standpoint of our clients wanting to see the product, but it's kind of like, well, we're going to cost you $250,000 this year, and I go, wait a minute, that's what I'm paying MSG, so why would I do that? Well, that's our price. And when I get up to leave the table, like, where are you going? Well, the product on the field isn't worth that much. So that for me is a big part of the discussion.
Well, and that's an important next segue, because I was just going to ask Gary. Let me do it with Tony, and then you, the sellers react. So, by definition, mathematically, one team has to lose every game, and if you are stringing together a whole bunch of losses, you don't have the assets, then you got to figure out how to deal with it, because if the product sucks, you got to have a statement that says the product's getting better, we've got great fan experience and all of that, or we're going to have a problem. Give me, though, from your perspective, Tony, the couple of things process-wise that you care most about on the corporate side that teams will need to do to make a deal with you?
I think what it comes down to for most of our buyers is that personalization, that understanding of exactly what the buyer is. It doesn't mean that every team needs to win, but when a team wins, you're in significant demand. If you're not winning, you have to have a realistic approach to who you're selling to and why, right? What are they trying to get out of this? Who are they trying to send? If you talk to companies and businesses who have actually put a process behind this, and they know what they're doing, then they have a use for everything within their portfolio. The problem on the team side, and I was on the team side 10 years ago, and it really hasn't changed that much, is that they almost view their own throwaways as throwaways. And that's devaluing a product, and they don't want to buy throwaways anymore. And you know who doesn't have to buy throwaways anymore? These guys. StubHub will sell them whatever they want to buy on a one-off basis. And so what we really look for when we look for a company is having that process in place that leverages everything that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So bear with me here, because this will be a quick tangent. But every day, we are all being trained by Facebook, by Google, by Apple, by all these different providers, Amazon, how to buy, what to buy, where to buy, and how to experience it, right? And what we need to see on the team side is we need to see that technology catch up as well, so that the distribution channels and the personalization of the product leverages that technology and data.
That's not a brief tangent. That's a very important, appropriate core point. Flip side, Len, then Chris. How do you view the issues with corporate America, and what are the most important things you want to see out of a corporation when you are ready to make a deal with them?
You said Len, then Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying. I'm
Len,
following
then
the order.
Chris. What are? No.
Well, first off, I want to say one thing. First of all, Tony, just to commend his company. We use Spotlight, and I'm sure you know what it is as a solution. But in essence, in working with suite administrators and taking a lot of that burden off of them, making it much more of a more seamless, easy experience. Also, be able to help determine ROI for them. And I'm not saying this because he's here up on the panel, but we've seen great usage with our suite holders. Key, who's one of the big headquartered companies in Cleveland, had a lot of great success with that, and they're certainly one of the great testimonial partners for that as well. And to take one step further away from that, I mentioned about flash seats. So we have a ticketing company, Veritix, and with that we have a next generation mobile app that we're developing off of our previous one, but it's in essence a 360 platform. So it'll have has mobile ticketing, it has proximity marketing, has the ability for wayfinding, and it also has full engagement for our fans. So from any digital aspect, from Twitter to digital posting of whatever the case may be, fully comprehensive. But the key component of that as well is data. And with that, we have a digital 360 footprint of every fan who comes through the queue right now. We're essentially almost 100% digital building off of that overall platform, which allows for a phenomenal two-way engagement relationship with our corporate partners, because we know who our fans are. We know if you came in like gate B at 8:42 a.m. and you went to this concession stand, or you bought this merchandise, or you did through this parking lot, because it's a fully digital overall experience and engagement, and it gives us a lot more ability to monetize and maximize their experience on a one-to-one basis as we go up the continuum there, but also with our corporate partners now, an engagement there based on what they're looking to do and activate is how we can utilize that data to help create a more one-to-one experience with our corporate partners as well. So data, I mean, if you're not in a position right now, when you think about your building and you have 20,000 people coming in, if you don't know who that person is and what their behavior is, and if you don't know what all the touch points of that are, you should be asking yourself, how do I get there?
Big picture. Do you think you're ahead of the curve? You think you're at the top 10% of all Big Four sports, or top 20%, or top 50% of where you are now as far as data accumulation?
Well, I think we're blessed to have, so Veritix as a company now is engaged in every major professional league and NASCAR, and also the official ticketing company of the NCAA outside of Major League Baseball. And so I think we're fortunate in that we're at the epicenter of that and have forged ahead to have we're now at a point where we've been digital for quite some time, and our fans prefer that. You think about your world, you prefer that versus a paper experience overall. But what I will take a step back and say with Chris, and having had a chance to work with the other major professional leagues, the commitment the NBA places with team business operations and the exchange of information, and also forging ahead with innovation, makes it a great laboratory to be able to stretch and work towards. There's a great exchange of information, but also innovation is at the forefront there. And I think so as a league, the league prides itself on that type of platform and that type of laboratory to work with. So I do feel that the league allows us to be at a further along just because of the culture of the league.
Do you guys, you both have common interests in this issue relative to the lottery, non-lottery. Does the league allow you to kind of walk into that ping pong ball room and see how many of the balls are weighted and what the numbers are and all that kind of stuff, or is that hallowed ground? Is that a DMZ for you?
That's a...
Yeah, well, I worked for the league for 7 years. There's one representative from each team, and of course the law firms are represented.
Yeah, and Deloitte and all the accounting firms. Right.
Got it.
So the old days when David Stern could pull the cold piece of cardboard out if he wanted to get a...
I asked him the question point blank, and I was convinced that there was no funny business.
But I clearly digress.
Yeah.
So the comment that Len made was about data. So you combine data with that $1 million. You're not going to tell us about what it is, but it's also tangible.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, we believe that data is the future of everything from selling tickets to selling sponsorships, and how rich your data is will drive you in that right direction, and what you do with it. But even more so in going back to what Gary was saying earlier, which made me want to just walk away and cry, of saying that if you don't win on the field, then you're not worth anything. You know,
I want to make sure. I buy on teams
Yes.
that are not winning too, but it's the differentiation that they present in the pitch.
Absolutely, and I think that's a very fair point. But what I would say is that, and I learned this years ago from the Boston Celtics, and it was working with them when I was at the league, and how to prepare for when that opportunity comes up. So when you get your Kevin Garnett, when if we have the fortune that Len had a few years ago in the draft lottery, which is tonight, if we have that same fortune, are we prepared to maximize that opportunity? So that's kind of what we're doing right now, and we're aggressive as hell. We have the largest ticket sales staff in the entire world, and we're just going to keep adding bodies. And the good thing is we're in a big market, so we can afford to do this, but instead of retreating, we're going aggressive out there, and we're going out there with a transparent plan of the future, and taking those proper steps. But I think it's sometimes it is better to be lucky than good.
Part of that being prepared is taking care of the people who were around when you weren't winning, right? I mean, you guys are part of teams that aren't winning.
Couldn't agree more.
The Cavs weren't winning a few years ago. Huntington Bank, Key Bank, Sherwin-Williams, Dominion, all our customers are there. They're still there, and they love it.
Yeah, and
right?
listen,
and that's part of it, is they look at this as an opportunity. We believe in the front office. We believe in the team. We believe in the opportunity.
Yeah.
Let's put together a partnership that looks beyond how much can I get out of you today, and really say, let's build something that's going to be long term.
Right, and I've been in my position, and our executive staff has been there for less than a year. So we did pick up on other people's deals, and so how do we reinvent them? How do we activate them like we are a championship contender team right now? So that's kind of our approach with everything. Like, revisit. It's not necessarily about trying to squeeze somebody for an extra dime or any money at all. Yeah. It's about actually going out there and saying, like, hey, listen, we're going somewhere, but we know where we are right now.
And I think that's the key part, the showing to Tony's point, put it a different way, lifting up the covers a little bit more. Years ago in 2002, I bought the White Sox because they pitched that we suck now, but look at our farm system, rated #1 in the ratings. It's going to be, we are going to be there, as opposed to just the pitch saying we suck now, but we'll be better. It's kind of like, right, I have a dime for every call I've received on that. But I mean, they took us down, showed the farm system rating, showed some of the guys, and we made a purchase, and we were there for the series in 2005, and on a good deal for us.
Yeah, no, and I think internally the sell is just as strong, and we do believe that we have a plan, and we are transparent, and the fans are part of that plan as well. We're not trying to sell them something that we can't deliver. Yeah. So, and that's why we're having success, because people actually want to grab on while the stock is rising, but before it gets too expensive.
That's right.
If I could ask a question, because I pose this maybe to Gary, Tony, as well as Rick, but then this gets back to overall thinking from an overall fan experiential end and taking a step back. So there's things we can't control. I mean, the last 4 years, we've had the worst winning percentage in the NBA. So, There you go. Feel your pain. But and so how do you deal with those type of issues? But also looking at it from an overall fan experience, and I think this dovetails again back to what's in front of all of our franchises as we move forward, is how big. When you think about trends in the U.S. right now, the urban marketplace and the energy going back into urban centers in terms of live, work, and play 24/7 cities, people wanting to live downtowns, record number of people living, apartments, condos, you name it, taking place. How important is it? And I look at the L.A. with the Staples Center as a perfect example. You could have had the Kings, going back in Tim Lake back in the day. They were out at the Forum in a relatively, suburban, quasi-suburban setting at the Forum with a team, and now they've gone into a city, and you have not only an arena, but you have LA Live, and you have this amazing energy of that. How does that factor in? Versus more of what I call a benign type of, because you could look at it just from one macro, which is team performance, win, lose, that's a big driver, or go all the way out in terms of what we can control. What's that? Just people want to socialize. They want to be in a place to be. They want to be in a place that has that type of connectivity. They want to be part of an urban experience. How much should we be engaged in that to help define and make sure that landscape is as it is, and whether it be the Atlanta Braves now looking at creating an instant development, surrounding that. So I guess I just asked that as to, how important that is, just looking at the fact that, unfortunately, we haven't cracked the WWE code yet, which is everybody wins, but or who wins when, but understanding that, there is that, understanding there's commitment to winning, but also just the overall experience itself.
And let's define the parameters of that answer, since we're up against the time. Why don't we do a minute for everybody, kind of summarizing where you are, answer the series of 13 Komorowski questions in 1 minute, and kind of predict the future. Tony, do it.
Okay, so yes, no, yes,
right.
no, yes. No, I mean, predicting the future, it comes down to, can sports keep up with technology? Can sports keep up with what's happening in the rest of the industry? Do companies want to buy, the hot new thing? Of course they do, but the problem isn't whether they're going to buy the hot new thing. The question is, are they going to get in a deal that's going to keep them around in 5 years when it's not the hot new thing anymore? Are they going to get in a deal that really helps them leverage their brand and leverage and tie into the subconscious branding of the teams that they're a part of? And I think the teams are going to be forced into this by the StubHubs, by the other people in the world. And here's why, right? We've seen in business this trend that's been happening for years. We'll use Malcolm Gladwell's mainframes to PCs. There are bigger businesses that are beholden to revenue streams that they currently have, whether those are season tickets or suites. And it's very difficult to make a move because you're beholden to that revenue stream. Can they make the move like StubHub did? That will be what decides the future.
Flexibility, creativity. Gary?
Yeah, so I'll answer Len's question first. That I can't even begin to put a price on that urban development process from there. I mean, look at my hometown of Chicago. We went from an owner, Bill Wirtz, who had bodyguards around him, to a son who gets a standing ovation every time he's in the arena. And part of the grand plan with Rahm Emanuel is the continuing build out of the west side of Chicago. It's a beautiful thing to see, and that cements it. And I expect that into the bidding with the UC every time we renew. So that's invaluable. I think the future is two items: connecting partners. So this is something that I count on through my Spotlight contract to happen, and count on these guys to do for us. I've got X that I can move on my own. I've got Y that I'm struggling to move. Who are those connections? And I think for the teams, the recognition, and there are some teams that really are good about this, the recognition that 3 years ago I bought a 12-person suite and I'm having trouble moving it, partly maybe even because of our issues on struggling.
Which is not your fault.
Right, but who's going to connect me to the law firm who wants to? And some venues for years were like, no, you signed it, it's only you. Like, but wait, you're actually going to hurt me at the possibility of non-renewal. So that's an essential part. The second part is pricing insights into your pitch, data you guys talked about. An essential part. Somebody comes and says, we're going to offer this and it's part of a brand building for you. Well, first of all, you just missed number one because I don't need brand building. I have number one recognition and consideration in my, so now we're starting from site. But to pitch that, hey, look, we're going to pitch you actually a 20-game package, and the alternatives that you could do in the market would be these, but look at the data that we're bringing you that shows that's a really good value compared to what you could do in Chicago or Detroit otherwise. That makes me go, gee, they already did the financial work for me. That makes really good sense to make that purchase.
Makes a lot of sense. Information, communication, keep an open mind. Chris, last word. Len posed the question, so Chris gets the last word.
I think there's a couple points that I would like to leave with. Number one, on the sponsorship and experience side, I think that we have to always be conscious and really respectful of the content versus commercial balance. So I'm seeing it too. And listen, by trade, I'm a seller. I'm a sponsorship seller. But when we go too far, it starts hurting the product that we're actually selling when everything is commercialized and the balance is off. So I think that that's number one. And number two leads into the future, where I see the future of this business. And I mentioned earlier that it was database marketing, and I totally believe that. But I think the mentality has to be stop selling signs and start selling solutions. So this game is changing. It's getting more sophisticated, and the people that are selling signs out there are going to get past. It's going to be a different world in 5 years, and we have to prepare for it right now.
I'm kidding. 30 seconds, last word, you.
Well, just 30 seconds, real quick on the looking at your venue as we're reinventing our venues. I would just say two things. Less is more, and more of less is good. So what does that mean? We saw with the Barclays Center that their capacity is in the low 17s in New York. So I think as we look at our venues, how do we create more demand? How do we create more of an intimate environment? How to create a setting that puts pressure on our product? It's enable it to create more value from the premium end as well as for the existing fans. And then the other portion of that, more of that less, is more variety. And Rick alluded to this as well. So we've had sort of a one-size-fits-all industry, but with a variety of product out there and looking from court boxes and opera boxes and theater and just banquets and you name it, creating those little neighborhoods and niches and those type of opportunities creates the avenue to address all different spheres of the marketplace and help reinvent our buildings. If we have good bowls, we can help reinvent these buildings to make them much more compelling for our partners.
Ambiance is king.
Absolutely.
It really is. If you can create ambiance people want to be a part of, you can sell anything. It's not about price.
Yep.
We said be creative, be flexible, and most important, be respectful of the fan experience. We've heard it in droves here. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.